New nitros spawn in, AI cars race around, they can pick up nitros, they can overtake each other.
I'm Xanderwood. I make indie games and tutorials on game development. I also play your indie games every week on my channel. Make sure you subscribe and click that bell icon so you never miss a video.
Okay, welcome back. Today we are going to add in a third car, an AI car. We need to give them some instant variables. We need them to be able to pick up nitros. We're not going to get them to use the nitros in this episode, but we are going to create the functionality for them to pick up nitros. And I'm going to also add some variety in their navigation between these checkpoints so they don't just follow each other in a straight line. First thing we need to do is correct the bounding boxes of our cars. So as you can see here, if we're selecting bounding box in the tools icon here, you can see it's all over the shop. So I'm going to just drag this down, and it doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to make it fit roughly the width of the car here on that one. And then the same, oh, so that wasn't even the first one. So on frame 0, again, width of the car here. Frame 1, yep. Frame 2, yep. 3, yep. 4, 5, 6, and 7 is not where I need it to be. So let's fix those. Although these frames aren't going to be used because we've got the car behavior on it, but just for consistency, we're going to keep it like that. And then the same thing on this one. So this is the player car. So this is what's going to determine whether we're colliding with the edges or not. So let's fix that right now. Let's pop it down here. In there. And out there. Same with this one. And fix that. And that's going to enable us to collide with the walls a little bit better and a little bit smoother. Now we need to clone this AI car. So right click, clone object, and just pop it in somewhere else. But again, not on the HUD layer. Make sure we change that to objects and lock the HUD again. I'm just going to change the color of this very, very slightly. There we go. Now they look slightly differently. Okay. Now we need to change the instance variables. At the moment they've got the instance variables that we had on the player because we simply just copied them over, so we can delete those. Click that one and delete them. And I'm going to add a new one. I'm just going to call it nitro. Leave it as a number. Add it onto the second one as well. And if you're wondering, could we put these two in a family and give them a family instance variable? We could. I just haven't done it. There's no particular reason other than the fact that I only have 2, and I only plan to have 2. If I had lots of these running around, then I'd probably create a family, put them in that, but as it's just the 2 of them, I'm not too fussed. I think I might change the colour of this one's tyres, just so it stands out a little bit better against the black. There we go. Right, so we've got our cars. This one's called AI car, this one's AI car 2. That's perfect, that's exactly what we want. And now I'm going to go to the event sheet and we're going to code in the exact same thing for AI car. So we're going to want to copy all of this and paste it underneath. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top one, I'm going to push Q, and I'm going to put AI car 2 as a note, and then I'm going to select the top one here just so I know quick reference which one I'm working with. And now I need to change all of this from AI car to AI car 2. And again, in here in the action, change it to car 2. And then here at the first one, just again copy and paste that, change this to AI car 2. And find checkpoint X and Y. So now you'll notice that if we play this, the AI cars will follow themselves in a perfect line, as if they're tethered together somehow. And obviously that is not what we want, because that just looks weird. They shouldn't be that close together, and they shouldn't be that precise with their driving. So we need to create some randomness to the path that they follow. The problem that we're going to have is when we look at the code, I want to change this line here that says find a path checkpoint.x and checkpoint.y, and I want to create a random variable, so a random number. So if I was to say, for example, this is the first one on checkpoint.y, if I was to go plus random and then go minus 10 pixels and then 10 pixels. So effectively what I've just said there is find a path to this checkpoint, and when I say this checkpoint, it's referring to that dot right in the middle, that image point. I'm going to say find a checkpoint to this dot, but somewhere minus 10 pixels, which will be up here. If the whole size of this width is 36, let's make it 40. Sorry, the height is 12, let's make it 20. So effectively, because it's 20, I'm saying find a width, find a position on the y-axis, which is top to bottom, somewhere between here and minus 10, which is anywhere up here, down to plus 10, which is anywhere down here. So anywhere along this width of the course, effectively, I want you to find a path to. Now the issue, if I play it, effectively what we've said is for both of them, is it both of them? No, the first one. I'm going to say for the second one as well. Right, let's just copy it. And paste it. Let's see what they do. So they both go to the same kind of place. And the reason is, as soon as they hit this first line here, as soon as they hit that first line, that action gets overridden and they automatically jump to this one, which is then find a path to checkpoint 2. So they haven't got enough time between here and here to kind of really get to the position that they need to be in. So I'm going to just shrink that down to about that size. So there seems to be an issue where they don't quite reach this first one. So if I set this first one visible, you'll be able to see on the 3, 2, 1 begins and they stop right in front of it. It's like they run out of speed for some reason. I don't know why. I'm thinking maybe no, that doesn't make any sense. Let's pop it right over here in the corner. Go into the same line and they find their position. Okay, so that's where they find their position, which is fine. They're just not colliding with that because it's too small. So if I make it like this, yeah, that's a little better. Yeah. Okay guys, the easiest way to fix this is, instead of adding variety into these checkpoints, I'm just going to play around with the controls of these AI cars. So with the AI car number 1, if we look at the pathfinding variables here, I'm going to put a max speed of 55, acceleration of 30 and deceleration of 20, and a rotation speed of 150, which is effectively affecting how well the thing goes around corners. So this car is going to be faster on the straights, but it's going to take longer to decelerate into corners and slower in terms of handling when it gets around the corners. Then on the second one, if we come down on here, I'm going to make it slower on the straights, but I'm going to make it faster to start, quicker to stop, and faster to go around corners. And if we play it, that's going to create quite a nice level of variety. So they can literally overtake each other depending on where their strengths are. So you can see the variety of coming around the corners. Then he's going to catch up on the straight, but then the other guy's going to go a little faster around the corners. And then he can overtake on the straight, but he's going to slow down coming into the corner. And it's going to create a nice little bit of variety. And I think when we add in the nitros, so if they pick up a nitro, they're going to be able to use it randomly. That's going to create even more variety with it. And I'm quite happy with the way that looks. So that's my AI cars. I'm going to leave the collision boundaries as they are, because that seems to be working quite nicely. The next thing I need to do is add in a condition that says if they if they bump into one of the nitros, then it's going to add 1 to the local variable nitro. And the way I'm going to do that is down in my nitros group. So the same way we've done with the car, if the car bumps into a nitro, we add 1 to nitros. We're going to do the exact same thing with the AI cars. So I'm going to copy these 2 blocks, Control C, Control V, and like I did with the other ones, I'm going to put a Q. I'm going to push Q on the keyboard when that's selected, and I'm going to say AI car 1, and I'm going to copy that out again, and I'm going to push Q, and I'm going to say AI car 2, so I know which one is which. And I'm just going to change this, go back, and instead of saying car, again, ignore all the other things I've got in here because this is part of a larger game. We can go next. And I can say when it bumps into the nitro, we're going to destroy the nitro, and instead of saying system add 1 to nitros, we're going to go back and we're going to find the AI car, and we're going to find its variable. So I'm going to go instance variable set value, and it's already got the nitros because that's the only one we have, and I'm going to say add 1. Same thing on the second one. When we collide with the nitro, if it's a 1 or a 2, remember, and then we set 2 to the value of the AI's nitro, and then we're going to do the same thing with it with the AI2. There, so we've now set car 1 and car 2 to pick up nitros. There's no visual representation of that in the HUD, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go to debug layout. If I put this off to the side here, there you go. So AI car 2 has been lucky enough to pick up 2. So we know it's working. It's giving them the variables. Every time we do a lap, I think I'm going to spawn in new variables. And like in the original off-road game, if you don't pick these nitros up on the lap, after a little while they disappear. So let's go ahead and add that in. Okay, so let's go into the nitros. In the little bit of code here that says on start of layout, repeat 4 times, create sprite object nitro on the objects layer randomly all over the place, and if we spawn it on top of the wall, then we recreate it. And then we randomly choose a frame for it to be. Then when we've done this, when we've repeated 4 times, create the object, then we're going to do a wait. So we're going to give system, we're going to say wait, let's say 10 seconds. We're going to leave it on screen for 10 seconds, and then we're going to say sprite nitro destroy. Now let's see what happens. Now these are on screen. We come round. Let's not pick them up. Don't pick them up, guys. Don't pick them up. And now they've destroyed themselves. But what's happening at the moment is they're all destroying at the same time, but that's because they're all getting created at the same time. So repeat 4 times. What I want to do is for each nitro, when it's created, I want it to wait a different amount of time before it disappears. Okay, the easiest thing to do, I think, is going to be to add a variable that controls the nitro's time on screen. So if we go over to the hierarchy here in the project folder, in the off-road folder, you won't have as many of these defined, but we need to find the sprite nitro. Here it is. I need to give it an instance variable, and I'm going to call it a timer. It's going to be a number. Leave the number at 0. So now each time one of these things is created, it's going to be created with a timer. So on created, we can go in and say add action. And we can find it up here. We can say sprite nitro, and we can say set value of timer, and then we can choose a number between 5, 8 and 12. So it's basically going to be a short, medium or long wait. That's going to represent seconds, so I want that to be the maximum timer on each nitro. So each one that's been created is going to have a unique individual timer. So if I go and debug that now, each one of these nitros is going to be different. So let's find it in the hierarchy here. There is sprite nitro. number 0. Where's his instance variable? His timer is 8, number 1, 8, number 2, 8, number 3 is 5. Good, I'm glad that that's different, because that's just a coincidence that they're all 8, and then number 3 is 5. That means the third one is going to last slightly shorter than the first 3. So on creative, we set the timer to be one of those 3 numbers, and then every second, once it's been created, I want that to tick down, and when it gets to 0, we're going to destroy it. So we're going to say system, every tick, sorry, that's a lie, we're going to say system every X seconds. Every 1 second, we're going to subtract 1 from the nitro timer, so I can find that nitro in here, and we can go to subtract from timer 1, and then at the bottom here we can then find that nitro sprite nitro, sorry, and we can compare it. We can say if the timer is less than or equal to 0, then the sprite nitro must not exist anymore. Now they should destroy at different times. And let's keep an eye on them. That one's gone. Those 2 are obviously the next one, and then that will be the next one. But obviously that's too short because we don't have enough time to collect them. So let's change these initial timers now. The short one's going to be 12 seconds, then it'll be 16, and then it'll be 20. Perfect. That's going to work well, because we're going to create, every time we create one, we're going to set the timer back to one of those 3 times, which is great. So now we need to put into the code that every time we cross the lap, the start line, we spawn in 4 new nitros. So let's say lap time. On collision with start grid, that's what we want, and we just need to come and steal this code here that says repeat 4 times, and we also need to steal this one to say that if we spawn it on a wall, it gets respawned. So with those all selected, I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to drag up, and I am going to just pop it in. I can just pop it in straight under here, under that. So when we collide with that, we do that, then we do that. Although I don't need actually this in, because this is just going to be repeated. We've already got that active at the bottom there, so that's not going to matter. I just need this up here that respawns them in every time I cross the line, not the AI cars. So let's see if that works. We've got the 4 in there now. You see 4 more spawned in because I hit the finish line to start with. But that's okay, it gives me a lot of nitros. There's 2 more there. There's 1 disappeared there by the finish line. 4 more get spawned in randomly. That's quite nice. What I think I want them to do though is I want them to flash before they disappear, so that I can see when they're almost expiring. Otherwise it's just going to look random. It's going to look like they're just glitching out and disappearing. So let's go back to the sprite nitros, and we're going to give them a behavior. Let's give them the flash behavior, and then we're going to put it on the timer. So when the timer gets to 0, we're going to go nitro, not TV, sprite nitro, and we're going to set that flash, and I want it to be on for 0.1 second, off for 0.1 second, for the duration of 1 second. That's fine. Then we'll do a wait for 1 second, wait 1 second, and then destroy it. Let's just quickly check that out. They're right there, all in front of us. Maybe this AI car is going to pick one. They should start flashing in a minute. Did that flash? No, they just disappeared. Let's add a trigger once. So sub event, system, trigger once while true, flash, and then we do a wait. Oh, system, wait, 1 second, and then destroy. So then that should just trigger once and then destroy it. There we go. It flashes and then it destroys. Got picked up before destroyed. Perfect, I like that. We now have nitros that spawn in every time I cross the finish line or the start line. They disappear after a random amount of seconds, and the AI cars can pick them up. And the last thing I want to do before I leave it here is I want to give these guys a name, because in the next episode we're going to script in the end of the race. So after 3 laps, I already can stop everything when I hit the finish line after 3, but I want these guys to also be able to win the race. So in the next episode we're going to script in when the race ends, whoever finishes the third lap first, it will stop everything, and then it will display the first, second and third positions. But I need to give these guys a name, so in the next episode we can then have them in the hierarchy of first, second and third. So I had a suggestion from Lead Game Dev to name one of these guys Ace, which I love. I don't have a name for the other guy, so I'm going to call this first guy Ace, and again that's going to be an instance variable, so we're going to add it. Add new instance variable, I'm going to call it name, and it's going to be a string, and this guy is going to be called Ace. The second guy, I'm going to give him a name as well, but at this stage I'm just going to instance variable it. I'm going to call it name. It's going to be a string, and I'm going to call it to be decided. If you've got an idea for a name for this guy, so basically that means if you're one of the 3% of people that are at the end of my videos watching and you want to suggest a name, then leave a name in the comments. If you've left a name in the comments, I will know that you've been here till the end and you'll be valued in my heart for eternity. In the next episode, I'll pick a name and I will put it in there to give that guy his own unique name, and then, like I said, we will code in what happens when the race ends, and then we are very nearly done with this tutorial. Just a massive shout out to James Welch from my Patreon page. I really do appreciate all the support, and if you'd like to become a Patreon too, there's a link in the description. You can get yourself access to indie game assets such as free music, art assets, and I release all of my videos on my Patreon page before they air on my YouTube channel.